Welcome to Leadr Podcast, the ultimate destination for medtech insights, leadership inspiration, and the latest innovation. I'm Steph Pliha, founder of Tribe Agency and your host for Leadr Podcast. Welcome to episode 13 of Leadr Podcast. Today on Leadr, I'm joined by a former colleague and personal friend, Whitney Faires. She's an executive coach and leadership expert who transforms challenges into growth opportunities. We dive into transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship, silent dreams, mindset, and the power of personal branding. Let's get into the episode. OMG. I am so excited to announce our next guest speaker on Leadr Podcast. It's episode 13. And I have the infamous Whitney Faires, formerly Whitney LeBlanc, for those that have been around. But anyway, Whitney and I go way back. I can't wait to get into it. Welcome to Leadr Podcast, Whit.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with you today. I feel like we've gone back and forth on entrepreneurship, post-intuitive, and the collaboration's always fun.
So much fun. Yeah. So we have so much history. We won't bore the audience with the history per se, but I think it's a worthy discussion to talk about how we know each other. Obviously, we both worked at Intuitive a very long time, but probably something you don't remember is we were actually the only two female leaders on the West region, or in the West region. I think we were two of the first West leaders that are female, right?
Yeah. I just remember I was on a field ride with one of my reps in the Inland Empire, and you were meeting with your new clinical sales director. And I just kept hearing, we have this phenomenal female leader with all of this med device experience. She's super dynamic. You're going to love her. And we walked into the hospital cafeteria, and there you are with Ryan, and the rest is history. So we were pretty dynamic, right?
Yes, I know. Yeah. And also, I won't get into the details, but she did actually attend a surgery. I had robotic surgery, and the only person I allowed in the room was Whitney. I didn't want anyone else. I had a bunch of reps that were in that area at the time, and I'm like, you don't get to be in this room. But Whitney was kind enough to attend my surgery and make sure everything went well. And thankfully, all things went well. And I have a child that is named Beckham after that surgery. So anyway, thank you to Whit. But that all being said, she's right. We've been talking through this entrepreneur journey with Whitney, and I don't want to speak on your behalf. So tell me about your leap from corporate, just like I did, to your new business.
I will tell you, I've always had such a passion for people, and that started out very early in my second job. I got this opportunity. I was incredibly underqualified for in selling capital equipment. I moved to LA for it. And I quickly realized I was not prepared for this job. It was a very high stakes, cutthroat capital sales equipment role. And I had like 2 years of experience. Anyway, so the guy who hired me ended up getting promoted to the VP of sales. And I had to go to him and say, like 8 weeks in, I don't know if I'm cut out for this job. Like, I'm really second guessing whether I can meet expectations. And so I asked him for help, which was really hard to do because I was always able to, grit through it, outwork people. And I realized this is next level. I could not outwork people. I had to have a strategy and a process, and I didn't have that. So long story short, I engaged this leader named Ty Guthis, and he invested tremendously in me. And what do you know? A year later, I'm on the stage winning the sales award. And in that moment, it was so transformational for me because I truly went in 1 year from thinking I need to quit, like I need to find something else that I'm more prepared for, to going through this incredible development. It changed the way I viewed my potential. It really up-leveled my skills, like I multiplied my skills. And, I was just so grateful. And when I stood on that stage and I accepted the award, I looked at him like dead in the face. He's sitting in the front row. And truthfully, we were both kind of fighting back tears because we knew how hard the journey was. And in that moment, I was so committed to giving back to others what he gave to me, because it changed me personally as much as it did professionally. And so that's really what sparked my passion for people. And so, of course, as you know, like I took that into sales leadership at Intuitive, and I've had a great 20-year career in med device. And that led to a development discussion with my leader back in, oh gosh, it was probably 2017, where he said, what do you want to do next? And I said, honestly, I want to up level my skills in coach people. I want to be an executive coach. And that had nothing to do with my job. I was in customer finance at the time. And so it was a little bit of a back and forth, like, okay, how does this fit into your role? What's it going to look like? It's a huge investment to become a certified coach. It's easily a 12-month commitment. And, but I made it, and I launched internal coaching at Intuitive, and I've done about 700 hours of coaching just at Intuitive alone. And then another couple hundred outside of Intuitive. And so I finally said to myself, gosh, I have just cherished and valued my corporate career. It's so hard to leave. But at some point, there's just this pull that tells you you have value to bring. And I know that because of my coaching experience. And it's time to really go all in and see the impact that I can make. And so it's been about, I don't know, a year and a half of me going from this kind of idea or this dream to actually taking the leap. And, getting back to, I think the heart of your initial question, it is unbelievably hard to go from security to then jumping into the unknown. And you are a company of one to start out with. And so you have a lot to learn. And there's a lot of invisible work. People are like, are you doing this or you're doing that? And you can't even articulate. I mean, I'm sure you can understand. You cannot articulate all the stuff you're doing. Like someone would be like, what do you mean you're doing Flowdesk? What's that? It's like, what do you mean you're learning Canva? It's all
the janitor to the CEO and everything in between, which I think both of us reluctantly do not call ourselves CEO. I don't think you do. I'm the founder. I may be the CEO at one point, but I don't need that title to feel good about myself. So, and there's maybe someone better suited for the CEO position at Tribe than I am. So I'm totally open and willing to accept that. Well, first of all, back to your original story. One, I applaud you for being self-aware. Most people don't have understanding of their own blind spots or maybe their own inability. And you going into the second job of your career and saying I might be over my skis on this one. That requires self-awareness. Congratulations for making the leap. There's a very small percentage of women in business that make that leap, and especially successfully from corporate to entrepreneurship. So welcome to the pool. The water is fine. All right, cool. Well, let's talk about WhitneyFaires.com.
Today, I currently focus on executive coaching. And my primary customer, honestly, are corporations because it's so incredibly powerful to your results as an organization when you invest in your people, right? I mean, sustainable success, yes, you need products and leadership, but you need people to do the job. So I focus on anywhere from kind of your newly promoted people leaders all the way up through your executives. That's been my primary experience over the last 4 years. And so my audience, I've taken people from medical professionals like surgeons all the way through corporate professionals, startup companies, COOs. So I'm really focused on the high performers that have a desire to really invest in their development. I'm not trying to pull somebody along this process. I'm looking for somebody who has a vision for up-leveling their skills, working their way into higher level of their career. Or I also get a lot of people that have a really robust career and they're struggling because they just aren't fulfilled. Like they're experiencing burnout. And a lot of times that burnout comes from us, right? Our inability to set those boundaries. So I focus on your high performers up through your executives. In addition to executive coaching, I love being up in front of an audience and inspiring change. I feel like when you're standing up there in front of, I don't care if it's 20 people or 300 people, and you have the opportunity to change just one person in that audience to really be the catalyst. To me, that's just such a privilege. And so I speak on the excellence equation and how to go from underestimated to unstoppable. And so it's about just this framework that I've developed through 20 years of corporate experience, pulling on strategies that I've seen work time and time again, plus all my experience with executive coaching to really give people a reproducible process to set really big goals and achieve them and achieve them with confidence. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing today. And there's
Okay.
so many ideas in the future, which you and I have kind of chatted about some of
I
them.
know. I know. That's the curse and the blessing of entrepreneurship is there's so many things you can do in so many different directions and so many pivots. And, there's a temptation to boil the ocean, but I've been told by wiser people than me to stay in your lane, create a niche, really develop that first before you just completely span all origins. First of all, I'm not surprised that you have been successful both at Intuitive and also even starting this business because you are a boss lady. Like I worked with you for a long time, arm in arm. I know exactly what you're about. And anyone who's listening today that is appealed to the things that she covers, definitely reach out to Whitney. We'll talk about how we can get a hold of Whitney at the end of the episode and I'll also put it in the show notes. But I did want to find out, there's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of people that call themselves coaches. There's a lot of consultants out there. What is your secret sauce? What makes your solution unique?
Well, it's a great question because there are tons of coaches out there and people can call themselves coaches and not be certified or not be credentialed by the International Coaching Federation. And so, hey, like everyone has their strategy. I don't knock anybody's approach. But for me, I think what makes me so unique is it's very, I don't want to call it rare, but it's unusual to have someone that has deep corporate experience. I've transversed sales leadership, of course. I've launched a startup within Intuitive, which is our customer finance business, which went from a portfolio of nothing to over 2 billion in 7 years, and led a team globally. And then I went on, of course, to launch a new function, which is our finance org development team. And so all types of leadership development and talent pipeline creation. And so I've had all these dynamic career experiences. And so I get to bring that to my clients. And it's not about telling them how to do it or this is the way I've done it, but it's about listening from the corporate perspective. What I can tell you from experience, what works with coaches who are coaching someone just, on a skill set like self-awareness in, the basic personal space, it's different than the professional space. Like how we tell them to try different things in different ideas. It's just different when you're applying it in the corporate world. And so I want to set people up for success. I want them to get results the fastest. And so being able to blend my expertise in coaching and building high performing teams with corporate experience allows me, I think, this really unique perspective to come from.
I want to touch on that because I'm just going on my 2-year anniversary with Tribe and I learned a lot in the last 2 years. And what I learned is there's a lot of scammers out there, especially in the online and digital enterprise. There's a lot of people that can call themselves just about anything, like you mentioned, on social media or even online. It's really easy to get a website these days, really easy to get your own personalized email, even your own podcast, quite frankly. So there's so many people out there promoting themselves as the expert. And both Whitney and I have collective experience. And one of the social media posts I recently did was, if you're hiring anyone, always look at their pedigree, always go to LinkedIn, look at their actual experience, their accreditations, their education, and see if they've actually walked in your shoes. Because many people call themselves marketers, many people call themselves coaches, and quite honestly, they have no experience touching on that, consulting on that, or working in that industry. So just buyer beware. And it is nice to have someone like Whit, where she's not only has a ton of experience, but she's done it in a corporate environment where is your exact ideal customer profile. So people that work in corporate right now may enlist Whitney's services, but also even executives or companies may enlist her services, and just know that she worked for a titan within this industry of med tech and has a ton of experience on any lane you want to take that employee. So I agree with you that experience matters, and it sounds so obvious, but very few people check the work. We had a saying in Intuitive called trust yet verify.
For sure.
Trust yet verify any coach you hire and make sure that they actually have credibility in what they're talking about. Talk to me about untapped potential.
I fundamentally believe that every single person has untapped potential. Now, some people are indifferent, like they're happy where they're at, and that's totally okay. But I find a lot of people, they want more, right? They want to reach the next level. They want to, feel good when they walk into their job every day and like know that they're going to crush it instead of doubting themselves. And so what I really try to focus on is helping people get really clear about what it is that they want. And sometimes that's just a journey in and of itself. Like, what do you want to do with your career? Like, where do you want to get better? Or where do you need to be more effective? And then we build that plan. And one of the biggest obstacles that's in our way is ourselves, quite honestly. I've spent so much time on work around managing your mindset. I always call it, you want to have a magnetic mindset. And what I mean by that is you want a mindset that works for you, that is so positive and that is so productive, that it's attracting the things that you want instead of the mindset that's like dragging you down. That's like putting you further away from everything that you want in life. And so I work a lot with people around, to get where you want to go, it first requires you to manage yourself, and it requires you to closely examine your mindset, the narrative that you're replaying in your head every single day. Because we do that. Like, I think the statistic is like 90% of our thoughts are repetitive, something like that. I need to check that.
Patterns.
Yeah. And so if you think about that, until you get the awareness to really say, what's happening in there? When I'm getting ready to go into that big meeting where I need to perform, what's happening? And once you start to really get a hold of your mindset and you can be more intentional about how you use it, then you can really accelerate your development very quickly.
Notion of silent dreams. Tell me about that.
I feel like a lot of us harbor this silent dream, like whether you're at work and you see somebody present, or you're in a meeting with somebody and you're like, gosh, I would love to be that person. But you immediately just kind of dismiss it, like, oh, she's amazing, he's so great at this. Or it could be something bigger. Like for me, it was, sitting in a leadership program, and it was kind of I always had this silent dream of really dedicating 100% of my time to impacting people, right? To giving back what people had given me through development. And for so long, I was just like, it's too hard. I'm the primary breadwinner. I have this great career, and I love my company, and I love my coworkers, and I really love my job. So like, just be grateful, just do the work. And it was in this leadership program in 2018. I will never forget it. And I finally just, like, the switch flipped. And I said, I realized I spend more time feeling bad when I silence the dream than I do, just being like, okay, like, go after it. Like, what would it look like?
Enabling it, right?
Yeah. And so I actually, at this leadership program, when I had spent, 3 days in these sessions led by coaches, oddly enough, hearing keynote speakers. And I finally was like, why not? Like, I've spent probably a year and a half sitting here going, this would be amazing if I could do this. Like, I don't have time to go to a year-long coaching program. Like, I have 2 kids, that are 3 and 5. Like, how am I going to do all this? And I texted my husband that night, and I was like, it's time. Like, it's time to build a plan. It's time to figure out like what my first step is, and so I said, like, I'm sending this to you because I want you to hold me accountable. And he was kind of like, finally, you've been talking about it. I'm so tired of hearing about it, where you just like push it aside. But anyway, I think a lot of us have a silent dream of some sort. And whether that's a career aspiration, whether it's, some sort of company they want to start. Sometimes it's like, I want a career, but I want to start a foundation, or I want to, have this other component of my life. And whatever it is, I just encourage people to listen to it, because, just ask the why not question. And let me tell you, oftentimes you're going to get a whole list of excuses, which is like, oh, it's too hard. I don't know how to do it. I don't have the degree. I'm not viewed that way in my company. And those are things that if you actually put a thoughtful plan together, you can change.
100% agree with you. I was just thinking about my silent dream. I've actually verbalized it to a few of the leaders that I worked with at Intuitive, and most recently Taylor. I think in one of our reviews, he had said, what's your 5-year plan? Or probably not something that cliche. It was definitely a little bit more, provocative. But during travels that we'd had together, I'd always said, I've always wanted to own my own company. And my dad was a small business owner. He had multiple businesses. And I kind of grew up that way, seeing that he always had his own deal, worked for himself. He was also a politician. There was just a lot that I grew up with that really inspired me. And I was constantly coming up with random ideas of companies, nothing to do with medical device, but I always had that passion. And it was this like unscratched itch that I've always had. And you're right. You literally just have to have a conversation with yourself, usually first your husband, then yourself, or vice versa, and say, what's the worst thing that can happen? I can fail and go back to doing what I'm good at somewhere else, right? I never feared failure. I don't think you're the type that does either. I always say I'm a cat. I'll always land on my feet, and I have multiple lives. So I'm good if I fail. In fact, if you're not failing at least once a day, you're not doing anything, right? So
Yeah.
silent dreams are to be followed. And it's not always the greatest timing. Like I think you waited for the right time to follow your silent dream. And I too found it'll come to you when it's the time. And you just have to chase it because you'll never know until you try. And I'm a big fan of following your dreams. So anyway, thank you for touching on that.
The untapped potential that you have is obviously helping. I mean, look at the impact that you've had in all these medtech companies. And even people like me who you show me the way in a lot of areas, I'm like, should I do this or should I do this? How do you approach that? And I think you've really like, first of all, I see you so enthusiastic and excited and passionate about the work that you do. Right. And then you've kind of unleashed this whole other side of you professionally. And that's what I mean is like, a lot of times I think some of our potential, when we're like, well, what is my potential? Like, you know, am I dreaming too big? Am I dreaming too small? Ask yourself, like, what's the work that you love? Like, if you could get up every day and do something, what is that? Like, what's the idea that pops in your head that you're like, push aside? And that's where I think a lot of times there's that connection. And, you know, it's like the step by step, you know, that you have to take where even if you have the fear of failure, which I definitely did, like, how am I going to make the money I want to make? Who, you know, how am I going to get clients? Like, you know, there's all those things. And it's just one thing at a time, just like a step out of your comfort zone. You learn something, you adapt, and then you keep moving. And before long, like you have that confidence, you're ready.
Yep. I attribute that because I think you and I are very aligned on that. Our DNA is set the exact same way where I don't fear failure. I am a risk taker. You know, my husband is not, I mean, not that he's not a risk taker, but he does not have this entrepreneurial spirit about him. We've had multiple conversations about it. That's just not in his passion book, right? But I think in certain people, it's just this, they're wired differently and they have this massive amount of passion. And thank you for saying that I appear to have passion about what I'm doing right now, because I do. I love going to work every day. And that is what everyone should feel. And so if you don't feel that right now, you know, certainly tap into Whitney, tap into me. We'll talk about a couple of options that we have at the end of the podcast to maybe explore different opportunities. But I would say the two common denominators that probably both of us have is we had great mentors through our journey and evolution. I have many that I could speak to or speak of that have really framed my confidence, framed my ability, made me kind of go for things and really get that untapped potential out of me. And I also think it's parenting. You know, I grew up in a very safe and secure environment where I didn't doubt myself and I felt very comfortable and safe. And, you know, I give a credit to my parents for that. But I think between those two things, like your family of origin and great mentorship, and even if you didn't have a great family of origin, if you pursue mentors that really have your best interest in mind and they will tell you what you need to hear. I've had many mentors give me really hard criticism. And if you know they love you and they are coming from a place of you kicking ass, then you'll take that all day long. Like, tell me more. It may sting, but you know where it's coming from. It's not coming from a position of power. It's coming from, I see so much light in you. I used to tell a lot of my reps at Intuitive this, God put a light in you and it's not yours to put out. So do not put it out, right? And I always want to make sure people see what their untapped potential is, but mentors and advocates, which I think we're going to talk about, they're a big part of it. At least it was for me. And I'm pretty sure it was for you.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, you nailed it where it's like, I always think like your mentor is not your cheerleader. You know, like I have my group of people that when I just like, especially as I've gone out on my own, you know, I've got like my group of people. I'm like, when I call you and I
Yeah.
tell you I'm struggling, I just need you to pick me up. And I
Mm-hmm.
have that group of people that I call on for that. Because sometimes you just need someone to like kind of stand you back on your feet.
Right.
Those are my mentors. My
Yeah.
mentors.
They're your hype men
Yeah,
or
yeah,
women.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then your mentors are the people that see the potential that you probably don't see. Like
Mm-hmm.
the people that come up and give you, an attaboy about something you did at work or
Mm-hmm.
something they've heard about you or some feedback they've gotten, and they're like, "Wow!" Like you hear them describe you, and you're like, "Are they talking about me? Like that's not me."
Yeah.
That's a person that can get behind you and help like pull you up to that next level. That they
Mm-hmm.
see what you don't even see. But
Yeah.
you got to be ready because I know
Yeah.
you've experienced this too. With a great mentor comes incredible challenge, right? That person is going to give you the hard feedback. They're not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to challenge your
Nope.
thinking. And, so be careful what you wish for because I
Mm-hmm.
personally, I had to learn to like not get down when I get the hard feedback. But when you learn to like look at the hard feedback as this is my recipe to getting better.
Yep.
This is the recipe to get where I want to go. Not all the stuff I'm doing wrong. It just becomes so much more fun because it's a challenge.
Yeah. So let's talk about the distinction between mentoring and advocacy. I know we talked about it in our last phone call, but not everyone understands that there are distinct differences between those and why you need both.
Yeah. I mean, so to me, I see an advocate as someone who is speaking up and representing you when you're not in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And advocates can come from different places. They could be peers. I think a lot of times they're leaders. It doesn't mean that they're your exact leader, but another leader in the organization or that you cross paths with. And so, sometimes they're called sponsors, but sponsorship can be a totally different thing. So I kind of tread lightly on that. But an
Yeah.
advocate really is um, promoting your work, your brand, your style to
Mm-hmm.
others in the organization, for example. I feel like a mentor, they can advocate for you at times, for sure. But a mentor is that sounding board that you're going to and you're saying, hey, I got this hard problem I'm solving. Or I got this feedback and I don't even know what to make of it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
see the feedback. I don't see what they're telling me, and I need someone to help me see it. What do you
Yeah.
see? And they are just somebody that I think, to me, a mentor. They challenge you, they ask you a lot of questions to get you thinking, and they hold up the mirror for you so that you
Yeah. And
have an opportunity to self-diagnose.
from our experience in corporate, and I've had this conversation with my husband and others that are friends of mine in the corporate world, they may think they have a mentor, but advocates, like you said, in a room where you're not in, they are speaking on your behalf. It's similar to the entrepreneurial world of clients. So I have clients that, worked with me, but they wouldn't necessarily advocate for me. They don't have any ill will to speak, but they're not going to go out on a limb and advocate for me. Then you have others that literally tell anyone that asks, who do you use for brand? Oh, I would 100% use Tribe. It's the same thing for an advocate. They will, in a room where they're taking votes, speak on your behalf. You need to hire Whitney, 100% down, no questions asked. Like that is a big part of corporate. And if you're lacking an advocate, you need to find one. And it's also, I think, important to have someone that's trusted and respected in the organization. If you have an advocate that's not going to really help you. Same
Yeah.
with a client. If you have a client that people don't really trust and respect, their word on you isn't really going to help or really resonate with who you're trying to influence. So I think it's just important, if you're listening to this podcast today, to examine, do you have a mentor that gives you the hard facts and with the best intent? And do you have an advocate, someone that would shout out in a room where you are not in, that is trusted and respected? And then obviously, do you have a coach? Do you have someone that can, you can hire to give you all of that information and maybe be, your hype man, your mentor, your advocate, all of it combined into one. So if you're lacking someone internally or organically, I definitely would look outside. Another thing that we didn't talk about yesterday, but that I think kind of goes hand in hand is having a tribe. That's why I named Tribe Agency Tribe, because I've always lived my life like that. I have tribe friends. I have tribe family members. I have tribe, entrepreneurs, even people that don't know they're in the tribe that are in the tribe, people like Travis Bradberry, I learned a lot about emotional intelligence. Or what's the other guy? I'm just totally drawing a blank on his name, but I constantly shout out, oh, Ken Blanchard.
Mm-hmm.
He's part of my tribe for leadership. I've modeled everything after him for leadership. And so I think having a big tribe and developing like anything you want to have in your life, you should have people that model that, because you're only as good as the people around you and your tribe, really. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
one thing I want to share points for you on the tribe. I think that a key to having an effective tribe is like knowing what you need. So when I think about maybe my tribe that I need for helping out with my kids, I probably need a little bit of something different than when I'm launching my business. And it's not that there is an overlap in the people that are in my tribe, but I think that when you know your tendencies, so for example, if we're talking about someone who's stepping out on their own as an entrepreneur, are you going to want to quit like 2 weeks in and you actually might quit? Or you just need a little pep talk, like knowing how you experience adversity and, some of the default tendencies that you have as a person, that can tell you like, who do I need to have in place to make sure that I'm whole as I go through this process?
I know you're only, a month? What are we calling it? Your month anniversary? 2-month anniversary?
I'm at almost, I'm at about 6 weeks now. So let's, 7 weeks. I'm just really seasoned. But in all fairness, like I've been at it for probably a year and a half. Prepping it. So it feels like I've done it for, 10 years. But there's been a couple of things that really surprised me. It's so funny. People they think that when you're the brand, you just like show up one day at your desk and you open your computer and your business is just there. And it's
just flooded. Yeah.
I mean, the amount of money I've spent trying to invest in all these different things to actually officially launch is kind of mind-blowing, right? But there's a couple of things I really have learned. One is you have to have a really clear brand. And stuff like how I did not know you were doing this, I don't know, but a mentor of mine, Molly Fletcher, sent me to a company called Brand Builders. And so I worked with them a year and a half ago to really define my target audience and what is my brand and what makes me unique and all of those things. And you have to be clear about that. Otherwise, your strategy is just everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
So getting clear about your brand, I mean, you have to be so crystal clear and very confident about that. The second piece is technology. My tech stack isn't even where it needs to be, and it's already mind blowing. But, I mean, it's not like we grew up in an age where there wasn't computers, but I mean, AI and marketing automation and all of those things, there's, I guess you could go to courses, but you end up like teaching yourself a lot of stuff, but it's so powerful because you got to invest the time for everything to pay off in the back end where you're not, sending, manually capturing subscribers and sending out weekly newsletters to a distribution list of hundreds of people. Right. So,
as an entrepreneur, you meet so many other entrepreneurs. I had a call yesterday. Someone found me on LinkedIn. So they have this theory that they take all of the old advisors that worked at these massive consulting companies. And normally, a company like Intuitive or any big company hires a team of McKinsey or any of these other consultants, and it's millions of dollars, millions. So they had an idea that they can essentially, you hire them for like $5,000 a month and you get access to these really smart people. Anyway, he reached out to me because he knows I have a network, and that's what's going to start to happen with you. And him and I are still working out the details on how we would work together, but that happens every day. My lights are always on now because I never say no to anyone. I definitely don't commit as much time as I used to, though. Like I would give someone an hour. I don't do that anymore. I give people 15 minutes, usually on a phone call. I don't even turn on Zoom. And I hear them out, find out what their interests are. If there's an alignment, we certainly work together. But, partnerships are out there, expansions out there. Like even you and I were talking about a couple of things that we want to partner on. Even though our worlds are very different on how we're approaching the market, but we have areas where we overlap too. So I think networking is a big part of it. Being open to expansion and being open to how you can work with others is a big part of it. Staying on, being present it pains me to hear that you didn't know I did branding a year and a half ago, but I was only 6 months in. So to be fair, I probably was focused on just learning the job. But all that being said, I think it is so fun, but I would absolutely hire experts just as I have. And Whitney's here to be hired. I'm here to be hired. Both of us have opportunities to engage. I definitely want to talk about that. May as well just mention it now. And then I want to get to the last three questions that I ask every single guest speaker. So I have a course. I know you know about it because when I was doing market research for it, Whitney was one of my market research people because she is my ideal client profile. She is someone that worked in corporate, but had a silent dream and wanted to execute it. Didn't know where to start, how to start. And essentially when I left my corporate job, I left on September 1st. By September 30th, I was ready to take clients. So I did it in 30 days or less. I had my website up and running. I had, my offers, my services, everything that I felt like I could offer through payment was available. And so I took that playbook and put it into a course, and it's a 4-week module. I actually will link access to that course. It's, I think, super affordable for what you're able to do. So if you do have a silent dream and you do have a goal that you want to achieve, you can use my playbook. It literally is my exact playbook. I took my calendar for 4 weeks and had that help me create the courses. So I'm looking at exactly what I focused on week to week for the 4 weeks, getting to a point where I could start taking clients. And then from that point on, I haven't looked back, right? So I do have that course. It's called the 30-Day Entrepreneur. To get a hold of Whit, though, what's the best place and how could they even just have a conversation with you if they're curious, whether it's a company or an individual?
Yeah. So my website, whitneyfaires.com, and Steph, I'm sure you'll drop it in the podcast notes. Go there and there's a couple of things. One, if you scroll to the bottom of the website, there's a little section that says free resources, and you are welcome to download my high performers playbook. And this has 5 strategies to up level your skill set. So it's a little bit about what I've learned from 1,000+ hours of coaching and leading teams. So there's that. And then also I will include another link in the podcast notes, and I would love to offer a free discovery call. A lot of people are like, what is coaching? Do I need it? And I find like the higher you are in corporations, the more you're like, do I really need this? I'm super successful. So let's chat about it.
That's when you need it.
Yeah. You would be amazed at the number of people that are high up in organizations that lean on a coach. And so maybe it's a fit, maybe it's not, but I'm happy to chat through that with you and allow you to explore that. So those are two ways I'd love to interact with all the listeners.
And you can find Whit on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can also find her on Instagram and Facebook. We had a conversation about Facebook.
Yeah.
And you can find her on your mom's social media called Facebook. Sorry, Facebook. Do better. Okay. So the final 3 questions for the podcast, or it just wouldn't be the same without it. I want to know one mentor. I know we both have several, but I want to know one that's made an impact on you and why. I want to know a book that's made an impact on you and your career and why. And I also want to know a superpower. So speed round answers.
Yeah, you got
the
it.
floor.
So, as much as Ty was my catalyst for doing this work, Nick Santor has been just the most tremendous mentor for me for 8 years. And it's the reasons why I said, he has challenged my thinking to the point where sometimes I'm frustrated. I'm like, why do you keep pushing me? But he's challenged my thinking. He's enabled me to put myself in opportunities to be stretched in different jobs. And also he's walked side by side with me through some really hard stuff. And that matters, right? Because at some point you got to lean on your mentor to pick you up and guide you through the tough times. So that will be my mentor. And I'm so grateful to Nick. So shout out to him. And then the book. Okay. This is really tough, but I'm not going to cheat and give 2. I'm going to say The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. And I will tell you, so I read this book as a assignment for work years ago, like years and years ago. And, when I got into building leadership courses, I was thinking about trust. I'm like, I'm going to revisit this. And I read it a second time, and it just opened my mind to really the true tangible value of trust. Like we look at it and we always say, oh, trust is so important. We need to build trust. No, you have to build trust to be successful. I don't care if you are an individual contributor working with peers, customers, or you are a people leader, or you are an executive. Like, it is a multiplier for success. So
Yeah.
if you've not read it, give it a read. It's a touch old school at this point, but I'm telling you, like, the way that they frame up trust, you will walk away and be like, here's what I got to do differently. And then my superpower, I will say, I think I have a unique ability to get people to invest in their own development, like really chase after it. And I think that there's this like place where people kind of like think something, like, again, they have that silent dream and then they're here today. And my ability to really get them inspired and confident to run towards it. I think that's what I'm known for. So hopefully that answers your questions.
Yeah, I love that. I was curious to see what superpower you were going to come up with, because you're a multifaceted person with many, many powers. If you haven't been in the room with Whit, I mean, it's really palpable, much like our mutual friend, Stacy. She's just got this like contagious energy. Like, I have actually never seen you in a bad mood. And you also are just like, almost like kind and patient, right? You just want to get things done, but in a very kind way. And so I love that about you. I love being around high energy people that are motivated and that, actually go after it instead of talking about it. And it's all lip service. Whit goes after it. Like, when she called me and told me that she was thinking about launching this company and, taking that leap, I knew 100% that she was, right? There was no lip service. I've had other people that have told me they want to have their own company and they haven't taken the steps, or they've done maybe like a half-tailed job of it. Not Whit. Whit does everything at full capacity, if not more. And then the only other thing I want to mention is, you said, about Nick Santor, is that he was pushing you. And you know why he's pushing you? Because he believes in you. And, for anyone listening, if you have a leader that's not pushing you, it's because they don't believe in you. So whether it's your leader or your mentor, if they are not giving you the hard facts, if they are not invested in you and they are not pushing you, they don't believe in you, or they don't trust that you believe in them, right? So it's a big testament to Nick that he's pushing you because he sees your capacity and your potential and wants you to see that full light that was put in you. So anyway,
yeah.
All that
Well,
being said,
those comments mean so much. I mean, I think that we were lucky to be the only two women to kind of blaze the trail in the West from a leadership perspective. And it was just as much fun working with you in that capacity as it was you working with me. So I'm so glad we crossed paths.
Yeah. Now we're old ladies. We were so much younger back then.
Yeah. We went from like Jerry to trainer to now we're talking about, all the stuff our kids do and then before launching a company,
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been fun. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I've enjoyed the journey hanging out with you, and especially today. So hopefully everyone that's still listening enjoyed and learned something. Again, if you need to get in touch with either of us, I'll put a ton of links in the show notes so you have access to us there. But both of us are on LinkedIn. I basically live on LinkedIn because that's where my entire audience lives. So I will be there. If you reach out, I will happily respond. And I know Whit will too. So Whit, I wish you the best of luck you don't even need it, but I wish you the best for your company this year. And I know big things are coming your way, and I can't wait to see it all evolve and bloom. And congratulations for taking the leap and having the courage to chase your dream. I really applaud you for that. It's a big deal, and I'm happy to watch it. So thank you for being on Leadr Podcast today, episode 13. And with that, we will let you go.
Thanks, Steph.